All right, here we go. I think I got it right now. All right, so we good to go. So I talked to both of you
Mhm.
guys offline about this concept I wanted to put together, and I'm calling it "How should I introduce you?" And for me, during this COVID-19 period, it's been um, it's been an eye-opening period for me. And the thing that I've tried to constantly think about is how can I add value. We talk a lot about making money. We talk a lot about being independent, but I just want to be able to create value. And for me, I've always just found myself introducing people and trying to make connections as much as I can with people. And so um, I was actually uh, I was taking an online course during this period, and the two of you came to mind, and I felt like, you know what, this concept that I have, I want to connect people, and for whatever reason it was, I was like, I want the two of you to meet, and I want the two of you to talk, and I just want to be able to sit and kind of watch it because I really feel like I don't know what it is, but I'm just going to jump right into it. So I sent you guys a brief, I guess, bio slash summary of one another, and you guys got a chance to see that. Kendra,
Mhm.
I like how you put it together: a writer, a filmmaker, visionary, and a mother. Tinea, you talked about being creative, being a dreamer, a finisher, and an entrepreneur. And so that was real straight to the point. And the first thing that I really want to start with, like, Tinea, when you said that you are a finisher, that really stood out to me.
Mhm.
Talk about that a little bit because I want to hear that. What you meant by that?
So most people don't know this about me, but my core, I'm an athlete.
Okay.
So I played ball my entire life. And so a lot of my mentality and how I approach life and business is just like my male friends are always like, you're like a point guard, you're a male athlete. And that's just how I view everything. So I'm just really big on finishing what I start, and I try not to commit to things I can't see all the way through. I'm just really big on that. So I will say no to something in a second if I feel like it's going to be too much. Like I take pride in giving things 100%. It's really difficult for me to do 10 things and give 10%.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? So I pride myself in that. If I start it, I'm going to see it through to completion.
When you said you have no problem saying no, that's like a weak point for me. Like I have a hard time saying no.
Mhm.
So like, did you develop that over time, or like was that something that you always just had inside of you?
You know what? A little bit of both. Um, Now, mind you, I'm learning how to say no in other areas. I'm talking about strictly with like business and projects because I don't like to half-ass things. I've never, even as a kid, like I don't like to just, half do something. So even if I wouldn't say the word no, you would know that I wasn't committing to something I couldn't give my full attention to. Now, I recently learned how to just know and be okay with that being a complete sentence, but I've never had a problem being like, yeah, I can't commit to that
Right.
right now because I don't like being overwhelmed at all, at all. So if I feel like something is too much, I don't mind the hard work, but if it's like I'm being stretched too thin, I don't like feeling like that. I don't like feeling like that. So yeah.
Share with us a little bit about your business, what you got going on.
Oh wow. Okay. So I have two businesses currently. The Green Room and Thick and Famous. So Thick and Famous is a, I guess, kind of like a lifestyle brand I developed because my degree is in design and business. So I know how to sew. I design, like that's my background. So I've always been into clothes, fashion, a full-time makeup artist and hairstylist since I don't even think I've ever had a regular traditional job. And so outside of doing hair, I wanted to pick something that could really focus on encouraging plus size women. I feel like, curvy girls just aren't represented well, and I wanted a piece of it. So I wanted to start that. Thick and Famous is something I started saying in college because someone had hurt my feelings asking me about my weight gain. And I needed to find something that I could encourage myself with to like not let it bother me too much. And I usually play on words a lot, come up with little anecdotes to go about life better. So that's how Big and Famous came up. And the green room, I've done hair my entire life. And I mean, that's what I do. I feel like that's my contribution to society. Um, and that the name just came from with that is I feel like that's the place where you prep before you hit the stage. And that's what my salon feels like. So I do everything from hair, makeup, wardrobe. I'm everybody's therapist. It's like I get you ready before you hit the world. So that's where the green room came from. So everything I do is basically just about making sure that women, especially Black women, feel like their best selves.
Got you. Kendra, you talked about being a visionary. So give us a little more about that.
I've learned that being a visionary is a hard person. It's a hard place to be, because typically when you're given a vision, only you can see it. So it's a lonely road, because typically people want to see the end. They want to see, okay, if this is possible. But one thing that I've learned about being a visionary is that there's a trust factor that comes with taking that step when it isn't a well-beaten path. Like it's being a trailblazer. And when you're a trailblazer, that means you're blazing something that has not been trafficked. Nobody has been in that direction before. So you are tending to be a leader, even if you don't want to be. That's something that I'm now like, I just don't want to be anyone's leader, because there's a lot of expectation with that. And you can fall into ego, and it can really take you away from what your intentions were. That's why I think it's so clear that when you do have vision, that your intentions are good. Like I said, I love when you said you wanted to add value, because so much of the conversation prior to all that's going on right now has been secure the bag, get the coin, secure the bag, get the coin. And I think what's happened is that many of us are securing the bag, but we have no morals, we have no integrity.
And they're
we
empty.
lack, we're selling out culture left and right, and not even realizing it, because we don't realize how we're the value. We don't realize how much we need to bring integrity into everything that we do. And so for me, especially being in Hollywood, it's a visual space. Everything is about what can be projected on a screen or on a television. If you notice with Hollywood recently, up until now, I think things are changing, but they got into the whole reboot phenomenon. And it was because they're scared of vision, because there was something going on and nobody knew what it was, and it was scary and it was changing too fast. And so they were like, let's go back and do the shit we used to do back in the day, and let's bring that back, and maybe that'll help us get an understanding. But there's an issue of trust, for one. And like I said, no one wants to be the leader. No one wants to say what this is. So they're going back to the old. But I think for being a visionary, you have to have a sense of being humble enough to usher people along, even if they complain, even if they're like, Moses, why we leaving Egypt? Because this food ain't good. Like, even if they're complaining, you just have to trust the vision. And I get that from being a super creative. Like my dad would always tell me, he said the sign of a great artist is one who can make mistakes and no one never knew they did. You can turn the mistakes into something brilliant. Those mistakes can take you in a path and in a way that you're like, damn, like, okay, I'm kind of glad I did make that mistake, So, visionary is all that I'm about. I'm a seer, first and foremost. I can see through everything. I can see, I don't know, it's the craziest thing. Like, I have been in spaces and I'll size the room up quick. Like,
Me too. No, when's your birthday?
January 5th. I'm a Capricorn. But I'm just very, I know I'm very, one of my spiritual gifts is empath, but also it's kind of difficult sometimes because I have to take a pause when I'm in certain spaces and kind of like regroup and kind of recalibrate. What am I here for? so that I don't get sucked into the energy that's the dominant, energy in that room. But yeah, being a visionary, I mean, I think it's a beautiful thing to be, but it can also be a little lonely, and it can be not oppressing, but it can be a huge responsibility. If you're not careful, it could turn into a burden in some cases.
Is it ever scary?
Huh?
Is it ever scary?
Very.
You mean, is it ever not scary?
Yeah, because when you look at social media, no one wants to be. It's like we came from when people were trendsetters. So you look to the visionaries, you look to the innovators to show you what was next. Now we have a following culture. Everybody wants to follow whatever is. No, let's all follow. It's like a whole bandwagon effect. Mm-hmm. And whenever you steer from the group, it's almost like you're seen as like, why you don't go along with what's the thing? Like, that's what's right now. What's what everyone's doing. But it's really something that I've learned to be. When you're a visionary, you have to be strong in who you are. And like you said, you're adding value. So I know as a visionary, when I come into a space, my only job is about the vision that God has given me, and to hopefully articulate that in a way, and maybe not give it to them right away, because sometimes I think you have to give it in like doses, like a teaspoon at a time. Mm-hmm. But it's mostly scary more than anything else. I will say that.
So you in this space where I mean, essentially Hollywood controls the imagery that we see, and really the majority of our perceptions of people, right? In segments, whether it be women, men, Black people, white people, Asians. How do you navigate being in that space, having this spiritual awareness, having this state of being a visionary, and fighting really against the current to be able to create things that can balance out against the imagery that we see in Hollywood?
It's funny you said current. I was watching what's that Marvel movie? Shoot. It's on Netflix. Oh my God, what is the name of that one? The one the doctor who's a surgeon, and he lost his he got in a bad accident and he ended up.
Oh, you mean on the X-Men guy?
Yeah, it's Doctor Strange.
Oh, okay.
And I was watching it. There's a scene where he goes to this place in like Tibet, somewhere like that, and he goes to get healed so that he can use his hand, because he was like this master surgeon known for being able to like go in and like do neurosurgery, like. And he goes there and he meets this old sage woman, and he's like, look, fix me. I need you to hurry up and fix me. And she tells him something that I've always applied. And she said, you do not beat a river into submission. You have to surrender to its current and use its power as your own. And when she said that, I'm like, oh my God, you can't go into this looking like I'm going against the current. You have to almost maneuver in this industry like you are with the current. Like you blend in a little bit. Like, yeah, I'm here. Yeah. But what you're doing is you're using the momentum of that current to then steer you into what the direction that all of us should go. So it's a thing like Jay-Z, it's that flipping thing. It's like you sold drugs, yes, you did all of that. But now that you have an opportunity where you have gained a sense of momentum, you've gained a following. Yeah, you talked about the same stuff people was probably used to hearing, and you probably don't even do the stuff that you're talking about anymore, but you gave them a little bit of what they wanted. And I always say to writers, and when I'm talking to people, you have to meet people where they are. Like, I can't come at you and let you know that I can't stand this and y'all need to change and y'all need to whatever. I can't do that. I have to meet people where they are, talk the language they understand. And then once I get them where they trust you, that's the thing. You have to get people to trust you. It's then that you can have those conversations to say, this is an issue, and here's why it's an issue. Because you're right. Hollywood doesn't even realize, even with this current thing that's going on right now, I made that little animation I made and posted it. And when I made it and I talked about how Hollywood also plays a role in racism, and I didn't let up off of it. You say that D.W. Griffith is the godfather of Hollywood film. He created Birth of a Nation. That was the first film. And it is a derogatory account of Black people. Woodrow Wilson showed it in the White House. And that's what y'all call the greatest film ever. Like, they teach you that. I've taken a history of motion picture class. They say that. This is the movie that Hollywood puts as like, this is it. But look what it represents. Look at the conditioning that it puts white people under. It's fear propaganda. It's showing a Black man as a beast, someone that you can't trust, someone that you have to tame, someone that you have to hurry up and get him before he gets the next white woman. So it to me, it's like, you all have to understand, these films and movies and television shows go out into the world. And that is the perception that everyone has. I think back to when I was younger. We used to call African people African booty scratchers. Why did we say that? Because that's what we saw on television. Yeah. We saw them with flies around their face. Nobody was ever kept. Like, we had a pure, our whole idea of being African was the worst thing in the world. Nobody wanted to be African. When I told my mom I wanted to go to Africa, she was like, why the hell would you want to go there? You know, and that's where I'm like, you know, but it's just the reality of what we have been fed. And that has led to a conditioning for many of us that we don't realize Hollywood, and, you know, definitely plays, I think, the role, if not one of, but it's definitely the role. Besides news, you know, news, of course, plays their part. But
yeah. How did you, well, we jump right into Hollywood, but tell us a little bit about what you do out there, and then, you know, how you got into that space.
Oh God, my road is very unorthodox. Tinea, I know you like to know the end. I am so like, my mom always says, she's like, girl, you are the riskiest person I know. I'll just walk.
But you know what? I'm a risk taker. I'll tell you this. I like to know the end, but I'm okay with not knowing. Like, I'm gonna take the risk. Yeah. You know what I mean? I feel like, yeah, I'll take this, but if I can know, I'll feel much better. But that's not gonna stop me from doing it. I'll say that. Yeah, it won't stop me from doing it.
Sometimes for me, the end might make me feel like I can't do it. And I don't like to feel that way. You know, it's like, I gotta do that. You're expecting me to do, oh, hell no, I'm not doing it. Like, you know. Well, anyway, yeah, so I came to Hollywood purely, it was a calling. I was in Virginia. I was an educator for 13 years, taught babies in high school, middle school, and I was so unhappy. I did everything they said, do, get you that good job, work with them folks, child, and, you know, get you some retirement when you get older, and you're going to be happy. And I was so miserable. I was terribly miserable. And so I kind of like went to the ocean. I'm very spiritual. So I went to the ocean, and I'm like, God, I don't like my life. I hate it, you know, and I'm a mother, but I hate all of this, you know, and that's when he spoke the words Exodus to me. And I'm like, Exodus, like what? And somebody just said, read the chapter, the book Exodus then. And I wasn't no big, let me tell you something. I ain't no big Bible toting, you know, go to church, but I was raised in the church because I'm from the South, you know. And so I read it, and I talked to my uncle who had come to California before, and he like traveled the country, like didn't care, just whatever. And he said, you know, the reason why I did that was because God called me to do it. And I was like, really? And I was like, it's interesting that he's telling me the same thing. He was like, well, you need to pay attention. So I did. I came out here to visit a friend who lived in Long Beach at the time. And I was drawing at the time, putting my drawings up on Instagram. And long story short, a person that is well known on Fairfax, Melody Asani, found my drawings, and she was like, hey, are you in LA? Because I love the way you draw, and I would love for you to come and let me like talk to you about how you could help me with my graphic t-shirts or whatever. What? And I was like, what? Like, I just happened to be in Long Beach. And mind you,
awesome.
I have never wanted to go to LA. I was never a person in school like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go to Hollywood, I'm gonna be I was never that person. I was East Coast till I die. Like, I am never going out there like Kardashians, they Beverly, like, ugh. So, but I did. I went to go meet with her, and she's like, "So what are you doing?" And I'm like, "I just came out here to visit a friend. Like, like that's it."
Right.
And she was like, "Well, I would love for you to like come on and like help or whatever." And that's what I did. I went back home though, and then because I worked for her for like a few months, and then I went back home because my dad got sick, and I stayed there. And I was like, "Man, I got to go back." Like I was bit at that point. And I went back, and I was working for a woman who did like retreats and stuff. And it just ended up happening where it was Issa Rae was having a sip. Like she has these sips with Issa Rae, and she'll have someone come in as a guest or whatever. And so at the time I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go work for like I really like Issa a lot. Like she's a Capricorn like me, like we both love music. And we had mutual friends, but I didn't know her, like, but I knew some people that she knew. And so I was like down like I ain't had no money. I was like, man, I can't go to this sip. And something was like, you better take that money and you better buy the ticket and you better go. And when I went, she was interviewing Lena Waithe. Now I knew Lena Waithe because of a project that she did with this web series called Black and Sexy TV. They had their own like network.
I watched that.
Yeah, she did Hello Cupid, and I thought Hello Cupid was so good. I knew Ashley Blaine Featherston. She went to Howard, so I'm like, okay. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go, and I finally took my little 20 and went. I went. At the end of the interview with her, something was like, you need to speak. Long story short, at the end, I get the mic and I said something. I don't even know what I said. I don't even remember what I said. But later on that night, Lena remembered me and she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. I'm just, working for this lady. She was like, you want to do script coverage? And I'm like, I didn't know what the hell script coverage was. I was like, hell yeah, okay. And I did it. And she was so impressed. She was like, oh my God, like this shit is amazing. Like, girl. Not knowing I was an English teacher, history teacher for so long. Like I'm used to looking at papers, grading them and telling them like, no, yes, whatever. And so I started working for her. And from working for her in like 7 months, I was writing on Boomerang the season 1. And then from there, I started like her mentorship program that she had. I've gotten so many people like jobs, like everywhere you could think of. But from there, I've like built a lot of relationships with people. And right now, I'm working with somebody whom y'all know, but I can't say his name. But he wants to do this project that I'm really not that passionate about right now because of the climate that we're in. I just don't think that story is as relevant or as necessary. It just, like you said, value to me, it just doesn't add value to the current scope. And so I've been working for him, and I'm also doing my own projects. I also direct, so I've directed 2 series. See, I did 2 series when I was in Atlanta, 2 episodes, I'm sorry, for a series which is going to come out later this summer. I've just been obedient mostly to like whatever pulls me. It's like, go over here and do this, I go over there and do it, and I'm go over here and do this, so that's what I do. And yeah, I just create. If it makes me feel good, I do it. That's how I work.
So one of the reasons why I thought you guys should talk is because like I see Tenea's Facebook page, and Kendra, let me tell you, like she holds court on coverage of all things that are like, primetime television. And I'm not really a big primetime TV person, but I often just kind of spy in the comments and I watch how many people jump in her comments. And I've seen times where she'll say, okay, we got to postpone the conversation until tomorrow or a few hours from now. And people are really like waiting for her to make the status. Okay, drop it in and let's go. So when I started seeing her do that, my mind was like, she should do something in Hollywood. Like she should be in that space, because the way in which she does the recaps, like how intense it is, how detailed it is, and how many people are just responding. It's like she's corralling people and getting people to kind of gather and talk about these things. So like, I gotta show you some screenshots and stuff, because it's just like amazing how many people are jumping in and like 180 comments, 200 comments, 300 comments. So how did you start that? Like what got you doing that on Facebook?
Can I say this first before you say anything? Don't do anything for Hollywood. Anything. Like right now, they want to see that you have something that people want. And as long as you got the receipts of comments and people saying I'm coming back and I'm waiting and all of that, that builds way more leverage for you. It's a thing called IP. Intellectual property.
Intellectual property.
Anything that you have that exists already, Hollywood will buy that shit with no questions asked. And when you do it that way, like Issa did with Awkward Black Girl, you have more power and you have more say-so. If you come out here, pick me, then they pretty much run you. But when you have it yourself, they gotta come to you and say, you built this brand. What does your audience want? What brands do you want to align yourself with? So that's all my advice is to you, and I'm gonna shut up and you show me what you do.
You know what? So I am a geek in real life. So I love to read. I love words. I just love how words mean so many different things. Like, you know, like the perfect word can describe the most perfect thing. And so something that my, I was listening to you, so many similarities is scary. Like, Silas, you were spot on. Because when I was listening to you, so Kendra, I said, you sound like me.
Right.
But so when I started therapy, she would always just say, like, why do you try to stifle your voice? Like, why do you think that you have to be one thing? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, you're so much more. You really think that you're just a hairstylist, and you are so much more than that. So she's like, start expressing yourself more. And so me actually talking more on social media in general was because I started realizing, and it was actually highlighted more during the pandemic, but I started realizing how much people had such the wrong perception of me. And I also realized how that was my fault. And so I was like, you know, I'm in a field, I'm a creative, but as an entrepreneur, I have to be a people person, whether I want to or not. And so I just had to find a way to force myself to open up more. And so my friends and I are constantly discussing stuff because I think I'm a journalist. So I'm always like, you know, we go into full discussions on anything. And so when I would do it with my friend, they would just be like, why don't you go live? And I'm like, no, I'll write about it. And so I just started being like, I'm about to recap things. So some of this stuff people be talking about is a mess and they need a real perspective. Y'all tiptoeing. Y'all not really going to talk about what's going on. And it just makes me, being my authentic self is like one of my biggest, like that means the world to me. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't really care about money. You know what I mean? As long as I'm being authentic and cultivating the right relationships, I know that I'm going to be taken care of. Like that's really what I believe. And so it's like just certain things that's pushing me to use my voice more. And then I never really expected people to respond that way because again, I never used to say much on Facebook, you know, just little stuff here and there. So I'm just as surprised as anybody else when so many people respond to it, because I know that I sometimes think the things or say the things that other people may notice but may not want to say. Yeah. And
or
so I just started being like, well, you know, what'd you say? I'm sorry.
I said, or maybe you can articulate it for them in a way that they probably couldn't articulate it.
And there you have it. But yeah, so it's just, and I think it's fun. And I used to have a blog when I was a teacher that I stopped writing. So yeah, but I've always loved, I became obsessed with English in the 8th grade. So I really just love words, honestly.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to do this concept was exactly what you said. People have the wrong perception of all of us. And so, you know, for me, I wanted to be respectful of people. And so the question and the name of this thing is, how should I introduce you? And I experienced that a lot too, because I am involved in community service. I am involved in politics. And like, it got to the point where people started introducing me to their friends as the next mayor. And it's like, I never told anybody I was going to do that, right? I've never ever told anybody that. People just automatically start saying that. And I had an instance where I was at, what's the spot called? The Elroy on H Street. And a friend of mine, I walked in and he was talking to this woman and he said to her, this is my man Silas. He the next mayor. You got to get to know him. You got to know him. And he was like barking at her when he said it. And she looked at me like, who is this dude?
Who is he?
And it really, like, he didn't mean any harm. And I don't think she meant any harm. But like, I was really, really embarrassed in that moment because here I am walking in this small space, just walking in. and something that I didn't do or say caused someone to look at me the wrong way. I could take it if I said something out of line, or I could take it if I did something out of line, but someone else just through an introduction gave someone the wrong impression of me. And from that point, I've always been really, really, really intentional about making sure I respect people, who they want to be, well, how they want to be seen, and just try to listen as much as I can. And, I think from that moment on, even joking with people about things too much in front of groups of people, I stopped from there because I knew how embarrassing that was at that point. So to live your life in a space where sometimes you'll find yourself actually trying to live out what people want you to be.
Oh my God, yes.
You know what I mean? Like, and I started really realizing that from that moment. And again, I have nothing against that guy. That's a really great friend of mine. I've not seen that woman since. I probably wouldn't know her if I saw her, but it was just a moment where I said, you know what? I'm going to take this moment and try to respect people for what they want to be seen as. And since that point, I mean, it was an eye opener for me.
Yeah. Because I was a teacher because that's what my dad and my mother wanted me to be. Especially my father. It was like, please be a teacher. You have your summers off. Like, what is you doing? Why would you want to go and you don't know if you're going to be able to be successful at that? That's crazy. But
and you know what? Mine was so different because my mother, I could have literally told my mother, Mom, I want to go to college and make crayons. And she would be like, okay. She from a kid, she was very much the person that was like, this is your life. I love my life. She says it all the time. I love my life. I have my degree and I have my career. So the choices that you make, this is on you. So try your hand. And so mine came from the fact that everyone is always like, you don't want this really big building? Well, like, no. Not then I did. You know what I mean? That's more of a goal now for other things I want to do. But before, I'm just like, no, I'm actually okay in a more intimate space. You know what I mean? Like, but I was about to sign a lease for something because, like Silas said, everyone is always, you should do this. You could have this. You need to get this. And I had to reel myself back in, like, but who's going to pay for this? These people have a lot to offer, but they're not offering a penny. Yeah, so I can definitely relate to that.
Kendra, you talked about your dad, right? I'm reading this book right now. It's called The Way of the Superior Man. And early in the book, it talks about trying to transform obligations and pain points into motivation. And also talks a bit about the relationship between children and their parents, right? And he's talking specifically to men about their relationship with their father. And he said, he posed a question that he wants the reader to take a look at. And he says, essentially, what are 3 things that you would do if your father was not in the way?
What?
You know what I mean? And then he asked another question. I think the question was, it was 3 things you would do if your father was not in the way. And then he talked about if your father died, how would that free you up? And when he talks about the father, he's talking about it in a literal way.
Yes.
But it's also like a figurative way, like whatever that thing is in your life that has authority over you, that thing that has played a fatherly role in your life. Like, how do you get beyond that? So when you said that about your dad really, really keening in on you being a teacher, like, how did you get over that hurdle of, I mean, and put aside the fact that it's your father, it could have been anybody, right? How did you put that to the side and say, I'm going to push through?
No, it was let me tell you something. So my dad passed away last year. And up until that moment, or not even up until that moment, my dad has always been a like security blanket over me. Like I've always felt protected by his presence. But then there's also a part of it that is very like helicopter. It's very like, what are you doing? It's very like, well, you should be doing this. Very controlling. And a lot of the controlling is based in fear. A lot of it is based from, my father was born in 1937. You know, he didn't have the things, the as he would call the luxuries of choice that we, you know, have today. And so My dad was living out, much like my mom too, living out his life through me. What he would have did, what he could have done. This is what I would do if I was you. And it now that I've been in therapy and I've talked about it, that was one of the things my therapist said. Now that your father has passed, you can live in your truth. And when he said that, I was like, what? Like, it just felt so like, that's kind of disrespectful though to say that, but it's kind of true, because much of my living when my father was alive was about being a perfect little girl. Even as a 40-something-year-old woman, I'm still trying to be this perfect little girl for my dad, and not wanting to upset him, making sure I censor myself, making sure I don't do this and I don't do that, and it for a long time, I didn't know who I was, because I was so busy trying to please my dad and please my mother. But a lot of it was their own issues with each other. They couldn't stand each other. I was the glue. So they were married. They never divorced, but they did coexist in a very dysfunctional way that, looking at them, I learned how to be an individual more than I learned how to be a couple or to be a family. I learned that when you're in a relationship, you need to look out for yourself from watching them. So for me, going into anything, there was a dynamic that I knew I couldn't trust. And so my biggest thing growing up was me trusting myself and my own desires and my own wanting to do this. So when I did leave home, people didn't understand it. At 38, I was fed up. I was tired. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I was struggling with I had my own addiction. I never told anybody about it. And I had an addiction. I was hooked on Percocet, like taking them like they were M&Ms, because I was so depressed and I didn't care anymore. And I was like, God, if you give me an opportunity to really relive my life and live it on purpose and not be worried about what anybody else is thinking, I will forever, I will always tell people about you and what you've done for me. And that's what he did. Like, he took me out of that space, because I'm gonna tell y'all something about when you are daddy's girl, you do everything hoping that your daddy will approve it. And even when I went into relationships, I was looking for my dad in the relationships. I'm dating the same dude that my dad is, and it was I realized that a lot of my dad's expectations were selfish and that they weren't fair to me, because he had an opportunity to live his life and nobody told him what to do. He did whatever he wanted to do. But for me, it was like I had to be what he wanted me to be, because he was so afraid that I might end up like, his sister or somebody, or that he didn't think was a good woman. That he always said, you ain't gonna be out here and be no hoe. I'm like, but daddy, I already had a hoe phase, whether you know it or not. Sorry, you too late on that, bro. But yeah, like, I went through all of those things, and I found the courage to be myself. Before my dad passed, he was not happy with it, but he had to learn that Kendra is not the kind of person that you try to control, because the more you try to control me, the more I am going to fight you, because I've been controlled all my life. And now that I have an understanding of what freedom is like, you're not going to impose your fear on me. You're just not going to do that. Like, I understand a lot of times it's out of fear. It's out of love. You don't want anything to happen to anyone. But I think it's a way to articulate that, versus when you're trying to force feed somebody this idea that failure is going to be exactly what you're going to, and it's not that case. And because I've been out here, and I'm telling you, a lot of people in my family thought I was just going to be out here like, girl, she going to fall on her face. She going to be back home. She going to be whatever. And all of them been sitting back like, oh, damn. Like, she really out there doing her thing. Like, so yeah, I need to read that book that you just said. I need to write that down.
Yeah, no, it's a good book thus far. I had skimmed through it like years ago, but then finally a couple of buddies of mine, we decided to read it together. So we finished the first section like last week, and we talked about it. And that was the thing that really, really, like, I took away from that, was just, how do you become your own person? And I think for men, it's a little different with our fathers, or just authoritative figures in general. There's a balance there. You gotta be able to hit the balance of falling in authority or under authority, but at the same time being your own person. One thing I thought about, Kendra, as you were talking, right? You talked about dating guys who are in some ways, a mirror image or a close image to your dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking, so as a man, I'm married, I've got a daughter, and I consider my family with my career and my decisions, but I never feel pressure the way that I would imagine, or I only could imagine, a woman feels pressure to balance satisfying what the man wants as far as the relationship and being able to pursue your own aspirations, right? Like I don't know what that feels like. My wife automatically just says, whatever you want to do, I'm with it. And I know that for men, we aren't the same way all the time, right? And I think about that. I'm really conscious of that in my relationship, but I do know that men are not always as understanding in that space. How I guess the question for the both of you is, how do you handle that? Like, how do you go after your dream doing that?
Silas.
I mean, yeah, it's a question that came to mind.
I'm gonna tell you. So before I answer this, both of you all mentioned a book, and I'm gonna tell you all, this book, I'm slow walking it because I can't get through the chapters. I am a wreck reading this, but it's completely changing me. It's called Healing the Child Within. And it's a book about, it is so, first of all, this book is from the 80s, but when I tell you, it is the most, it's a really simple read. And it's just like Kendra, just listening to you talk about healing from your dad, my therapist recommended it. And, just as Black people, we are born into generational trauma, no matter how amazing our parents are. You know what I mean? But this book will change y'all. I'm telling you, it's called Healing the Child Within. But in reading that, Silas, dating is, that part of my life is is a shit show. It's the most difficult thing for me. Like listening to you talk about being a father, Kendra, listening to you talk about your father. I didn't grow up with any of that. It's literally just been me and my mom my whole life. And so I don't ever know what I'm doing. And it's frustrating because even if it's a bad model, I would have preferred a bad example than no example, because I really just be like, okay, how do I do this? Like, I'm very delayed in that area. I'm not going to say maybe immature, because I just don't know. And all I know is achievement and work hard. And I feel like as Black children, that's what's drilled into us so much, just because of so many other things. But just growing up with a single mom, my mom didn't really date a lot. So it was like, she never stopped me from dating. She encouraged me. I had boyfriends and things like that. But it's like, there's so many things that I don't have a template for. I don't have a model, like none of that. You know what I mean? So it's like figuring that out is hard. Like I just ended a relationship last week. And it was just like, yeah, it's not, but it's hard. I don't know what I'm doing. I just be listening and watching people and praying that I'm getting it right. I don't know how I'm going to balance it, but I'm willing to work towards it when it comes. But all I know right now is setting goals for work and business and achieving. So like balancing relationship, anything it's like a foreign language. Right. But that was a part of my issue. Not knowing, he didn't understand it. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Being an entrepreneur. So it's hard. I don't know. That's all I can say. I have no clue. I'm learning just like everybody else. I don't know how to balance it all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think back to what B. Simone said last week about and she caught some flack for it. And you know what's funny, right? As a guy, my perspective up until right now, listening to you say what you just said, my perspective was I didn't see what the big deal was with
me neither
being involved with somebody that has a 9-to-5, right? But I never thought about it from the woman's perspective of not being in the 9-to-5 space and dating someone that's a man in the 9-to-5 space, and like how difficult that would be. I didn't think about that till like right now.
It's very hard. It's very hard. There's a lot of intimidation. There's a lot of just not understanding. I do think that there are people that I think I do think that there are men that could do it really well. Like I think it just takes communication and understanding. But if you're not secure, you might be uncomfortable because you're gonna go into rooms of places with men that make more money than you, and they might look differently than you and have different titles than you. But for me, this is work. So if you can't just be here and be that male presence, you know what I mean? Be what I need you to be. It's I don't know, but I understood everything she was saying. I did because I've been there before. I'm not like, oh, he has to be an athlete, like nothing like that. But I understood where she was coming from because even my even my friends don't fully understand what it's like. So like, you know what I mean? And we talk more openly with your friends typically than it's probably a bad thing than you do the person you're dating. You know, like sometimes you're a little more raw
Yeah.
with your friends. And I'm like, even my friends don't always understand it. So I totally understood where she was coming from. I think I wish she could have said it differently, but I understood where she was coming from because it's very real.
Yeah, I think that I also think because I always look at things from multiple views because I'm a writer, I have to oftentimes put myself in everybody's shoes. And I
Hmm.
feel like sometimes sameness can be dangerous because we live in a world today where everybody wants it to be like everybody else. And we're all on this whole
Very
equality
true.
porn and we're all on this diversity. We want everything to be the same. We want everybody to have the same thing. We want everybody to have the same thing. And the same is fucking boring. Excuse my French, but it is. And I feel like there's a thing called balance. Balance are not on the same. Balances are on two different ends. They're on two polar opposites. And
Hmm.
they come together at the same meeting point. The weight is the same on both, but they're not the same. And I feel like there is a bit of comfort with somebody who doesn't do the same thing that I do. Thank God I got a brother who is at home at a decent hour. Thank God, like I think some people are a little too definite in what they want. And I just think you need to be quiet and just say, you know what, God, whoever you got for me, when that person is ready, I hope that I'm ready. You know what I'm saying? Because while you say you might want an entrepreneur, how how difficult would that be to be with somebody that might be traveling as much as you're traveling?
Oh nah, I want this. I want the 9 to 5.
Yeah, when she was saying what she
I
was
want
saying was
you.
that she was
Yes,
against it. And I'm
yes.
like,
But I understand it
girl,
for sure.
do you want somebody all the time that you like, well, when we gonna have time to link up? Because then the
But you
relationship,
know what? She might.
yeah, but I just feel like what you put your in that this is what I'm learning. What you prioritize is what you start to do well at. What you don't prioritize, it's going
Agreed.
to be neglected. And if you're not prioritizing love and relationships just like anything else, if your definition of success is only about securing a bag, because for me, success is also about relationships. I want to have somebody to share this with. It is the worst
Hmm.
thing in the world for
Same.
me constantly coming home to nobody. And it's who
Girl.
do I have to share it with? I want somebody to say, good job. I want somebody to say, yo, you can do better than that. I understand what you're saying, but hey, at least you ain't got to go through what I go through. You know what I'm saying? Like that was a
Hmm.
dynamic that my mother and father had. My mother had the 9 to 5. My father was an entrepreneur, had his own business. And the beautiful thing about that was they had totally different experiences that was a little like refreshing, that my dad could come home and talk about his business and his workers and how he trying to get this and this, and my mom could add value to him in that way. Well, maybe you should do this. And then my mama would come home and talk about how the white folks getting on her nerves at work, and he could say, well, maybe you could add, because if we both got the same thing, we burnt the hell out. And we
Right.
probably don't even want to talk about it because it's like we both dealing with the same drama. I've seen dysfunction so much all my life. I'm
Hmm.
so open to
Hmm.
peace in a relationship. I
That's
ain't trying to
real.
put no like, oh, he can't have on that. He can't have child. I
Yeah, I
have
don't
dated
care
an
that.
athlete. Listen, I have dated an athlete. You can't compare, you can't compete with all that ass out there.
Hmm.
So
That's
it is
real.
not fun. I'm telling you, that is not fun. I've dated a dude that ain't had no job, was riding around in his cutlass. He could sing me a song, but he couldn't pay for a meal. But I didn't done them all. So I had my whole phase. I'm good. I know what's out there, and I feel like at some point not that you have to lower your standards. I just feel like you have to be realistic. The world that we live in today, and the world we in today, is changing every day. So we have to at some point say, you know what, let me take all these like superficial like things off of this and just be like, okay, God send me the right person that complements what I'm trying to do in my life, and vice versa. Because I want to be of service to him as well. So that's how I feel. But Bree Simone put her foot in her mouth too much. She need to humble herself, because now she got a lawsuit on her hands.
Listen, this plagiarism.
Oh, girl, all right. Maybe she need a 9-to-5 brother. Then he could have probably helped out.
Now this is true.
Okay.
This is very true.
So look, we started this conversation just talking about the basic, I guess, skeleton structure of the two of you, right? And I kind of want to wrap the convo up with a question for each of you, and hopefully the answer can help the other person. So Kendra, we're coming. I feel like we're coming to the end of this COVID-19 pandemic, right? Maybe not. I don't know, right? But you as a visionary, what would you share, I guess, with us around your thoughts of what it looks like beyond this pandemic? What should we be thinking about? What should we be focusing on? What are you focusing on? Like, what's the vision beyond this period?
For me, I've had this conversation recently. I feel like we have to stop looking at what's on our phones for a while and look at ourselves. I truly do. I think that we have put a little too much trust in an entity that here's the thing, we live in an attention economy. We don't live in an industrial age anymore. We live in an attention economy. What is up for grabs right now is your attention. When you get on your phone, there are ads. They figure out a way to put them somewhere you get cookies from your phone. That's what they ask you that now. Do you want to sell your information? Because they're curating ad space all the time based on your attention and the way in which you move about on your platforms or whatever. We have to realize that drama sells. Negativity sells as well. So much of our psyche right now is being damaged to no avail, because we are consuming trauma in a record proportion that at some point you're going to see like suicide rates already. People now are already taking themselves out. They can't see the forest for the trees. They can't see nothing else than what's in front of them. And it's a never-ending loop of constant doom and all of that. But it's still a good world. Unfortunately, it is an attention economy. Your behavior on social apps tells them what you need to see. Stop liking shit that you don't like.
Don't want to see. Yeah.
Stop sharing stuff that you don't like. When we share these videos of people being killed, or we share these videos, we are teaching the algorithm, and that's all we want to see. And the more you are looking for problems, you are going to find problems. If you start looking for the good things and solutions, then you might start finding that. I have never shared anything. I have not shared any Black Lives Matter stuff. I have not shared, because I understand the algorithm. The algorithm is how Trump got into office. That's exactly what got him in there, because Facebook, more importantly than anything else, got him in there. Facebook is middle America. They pay attention to Facebook more than they pay attention to anything else. At the end of the day, it is about money. As a visionary, I understand this thing truthfully. We say we are democracy, but we really are not. We are an oligarchy hiding behind capitalism. What really runs this country is money. And our attention is up for grabs, and they're making money off of our attention. So we don't realize that the entire mission behind all of this is to make money on our lack of control. The more they can feed you stuff, the more they have control over what you engage in and what you will do. Your behaviors become predictable, and it's pure marketing. If you look into I love, it's a thing called psychological demographics. I forgot what it's called. And also human geography. I studied human geography when I was at VCU. And I think that's a beautiful course to take, because you will be surprised at how certain areas have, like for instance, in the South, high blood pressure and heart disease are at a record number. Why? Because of the way they eat, right? So what am I going to put in an ad space in that area? Probably more of your medical commercials. Mm. So now I'm teaching people that your diabetes can be controlled by this medicine. I have completely took your mind away from holistic, going and exercising, maybe changing, maybe going to nutrition. I'm already training people, because many people in the South, they sit on a couch and they watch television. That's where they get their information from. That's what they trust. That's what they know. We don't realize you're being conditioned, and you don't understand that you do have an ability to change your diet and not even have to take that medicine probably at all. But we believe it. I have my mom and dad, they will believe a doctor telling them to take a medicine before they will ever listen to a nutritionist say, hey, if you stop eating this, and if you start going on a walk every day, they're not listening to that. Yeah. My father is there today because of a drug, Coumadin. The doctor told him to take it, and it was thinning his blood. And he went and got a blood test. Doctor didn't even look at it. He should have stopped. He kept taking it, and he started hemorrhaging from the brain from the blood being too thin. But he trusts his doctor more than anyone else. And that's the thing, like, we have to start taking more responsibility with what we know and understand. We have become more like sheep. And I wish people would be more invested in what they are actually indulging in and what you're spreading. Because you're spreading the virus that is not corona, but it's another virus that we're also spreading, and it's fear. And people are so afraid right now. People don't want to go anywhere. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't take precaution, but you can take precaution and not even have fear. You know, you could just say, you know what, when I go to the store, I make sure I wipe my hands. I make sure I put on my mask. But one thing that I just want people to understand is that you have more power than you think you do. We all have a God within us. This ain't even about being Christian. This ain't even about being any religion. It is truly about, what do you, in your world, in your space, what does your family find to be valuable? We don't have a moral compass anymore. Everything is whatever goes, you know? So I think we should start focusing on how we can bring more of integrity to what we do, adding value, like you said, and continuing our lives where we have respect as a priority, not just for ourselves, but for other people as well. Because too many people right now, I feel like, have sold out for the bag. Agreed. So many people have sold out for the bag. I'll tell you this, I'm coming back to the East Coast in a few days. And I told my homegirl, I was like, I really want to sit down with some people and have a conversation, because right now being Black is on the shelf. We got a Black Lives Matter already, SKU number and a barcode. That's just real. Everybody is trying to figure out a way they can make money off of Black Lives Matter. People are going to co-opt the Black experience for their own agenda. That is going to happen. What I worry about is us in that space, and worrying about when we say, like you, for instance, Tinea, let's say you're writing and you having this movement of people who are behind you. Let's say someone says, we want to offer you a show. When you go into that space, don't sell out to capitalism, because they'll say, hey, we'll give you $1 million. And now the show belongs to them. The best choice that Oprah made was when somebody told her, you need to own your show. And that's when she created Harpo Productions, and she owned the Oprah Winfrey Show. Up until then, it did not belong to her. The thing about when you sell, that means you don't even own you anymore. Like Issa does not own Insecure. HBO owns Insecure. She's very clear about that. Anything from merchandise to it, you got to go through HBO for that, not her. So if anybody come to her like, girl, you should do this on your show. Girl, you should change your show to 30 to 45 minutes. She has no say-so in that. HBO owns Insecure. The same thing with Lena and The Chi. She has no say-so over that show. Showtime owns The Chi. So my thing is, when you get your business to a place where you're in that room, it is super important that you are very, very articulate early on about what you ain't putting up with and what you stand for as an individual, and that you are not to be sold. It's okay to sell your show, but make sure you got some shares up in that shit.
That. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that you are still a decision maker when it comes down to what, that's what happened with Dave Chappelle. He walked away because that shit was owned by Comedy Central. They were making the choices and it was too damn much for him. And that's when they turn you into their little puppet. When you sell it and you like, oh, I'm good, I got my coin, that means that you got to dance now for them if they want you to dance. We don't give a shit that it's a pandemic. We want you to dance. We want you to do whatever. So that's my thing, is the attention economy, your mind, your brilliance is all up for grabs. Just be very, very cognizant about how you maneuver. Don't fall for anything. Like, just really take a moment to breathe, because we live in a viral moment where everybody wants everything fast. But I just feel like sometimes it's better when you kind of slow and steady and you kind of saying no. Make people bid for you. Like, and I'm telling you that because I believe it. Like, I believe in my heart that there's going to be a place where you're going to come to where people are going to be bidding for you, you know, and that's a great place to be. Don't just take anybody that come up. Huh?
I said, I'm over here about to cry, but go ahead. I said, I'm over here about to cry, but go ahead.
No, I just feel that in my heart, sincerely. I do. Like, people are going to be bidding for you. And I've already been praying. Like, I pray for my manager. I pray for my agent. I pray for my lawyers. Like, it's important that you understand that you need to have the right team of people around you that have your integrity and what you stand for at heart. Because there are a lot of people who just want to use you to get their money because they're going to get their percentage. But I gratefully, God has put people in my life where they know Kendra ain't for no bullshit. Kendra will walk away from $1 million and be all right with it.
Any day. Same.
Any day.
And you know, that's, sorry, Silas. My fault. I know you was asking a question. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Your turn, girl. I mean,
no.
I'm sorry.
Because what you're saying, it's like, so this time has really just been about personal growth for me, because before I started a business, I was a high school teacher, right? Mm-hmm. But I got laid off from teaching. Mm-hmm. And so the place that a lot of people are in right now is how I felt 10 years ago when I realized couldn't get a job anywhere, start a business, go back to school. So it was like having to figure out what my next move is. I think that I know for a fact that that time is the reason why I wasn't worried about my business. I wasn't scared. I literally was like, when I first decided to close it, I said, if these people that I have to pay my weekly to for my studio space, if they tell me that they are not going to give us reprieve during this time, then I'm going to collect my things and figure it out. I just never was. I think that I went through so much learning the industry and seeing how shady people were that now I'm at a point where nothing is going to make me dance. You know, like the person that wanted to be my manager leading up to now, that's why we would battle, because I am not easily impressed. So it's like, you can't throw money at me. You can't tell me about your followers. I don't care. I don't care about any of that. What does this mean? What is this going to mean for my name? How is this going to be represented? Exactly. I'm not thinking about all that other stuff.
Your name means everything.
And it's priceless. And like when you're talking about intellectual property, I mean, I love Jay-Z. So I'm constantly telling people, we'll make another Hove. So like, if this is my intellectual property and I came up with this, then I can come up with 5 more things that are just as amazing. Like, I came up with these ideas and I can come up with more. Like, I'm not about to sell my soul for this one. I got 10 more of those came from.
Listen.
So it's like this time made me focus on the woman that I want to become so I can get all these things I be praying about. It's like, you want all of these things, but are you the person you need to be to receive them? And so that's why like this time just broke me regards to that. Like, you're not confident enough, Tinea. You don't speak up enough. You keep trying to dim your light. So it's like all these things, it felt like I was under like a neon light. Like, you can't run. You can't be too busy. You can't overbook yourself. Now you have to focus on the things that you need to fix.
I think you're like a creative producer. because that's what I fashion myself as. And I think that you need to start coming up, whatever, you may have already done this, but you should come up with a name for your production company under the guise of being a creative producer. Because most of the time people see production company, they're going to think automatically, oh, you do TV and film. Not necessarily, because we live in a digital age, you can produce all kinds of things. Like right now, I love pop-up, like out here in LA before all of this, people would do pop-up exhibits, and I thought it was so amazing. They would take like a old, like maybe it's a retail shop that they haven't sold, it's just an empty shelf, and they would take that, get in, because out here renting spaces is so common because of TV and film, so they'll let you rent the old retail space that they haven't sold yet for like a night, and you would then turn that into like an art exhibit, and do, like, for me, I really want to tell a story that I have through an art installation. Like, that's my biggest thing. I've told all of my friends, like, that's something that I want to do. And then invite like agents and invite people to come who are some of those tastemakers, in your city, or people that, socialites or whatever, and have them come and have an engagement, because everything is so on your phone. People are starving for in-person opportunities to go and touch something and be around people. You know what I'm saying? So if it's no more than you doing that to kind of like, so that when you go into these meetings, people are like, oh shit, she already knows her value because she already got herself a production title, and damn, okay. Really, it's a flex that people out here really, they respect you even more. Like, damn, she ain't nobody we just gonna be able to just dangle this coin in front of. Like, we got to come at her right. And they respect it. They really do. I'm sorry, Silas. We didn't forgot.
No, sorry, Silas.
That's the purpose of this. That's the reason why we're here. So Tinea, we talked about being a visionary. I think there was other themes around power versus fear that I heard over the last couple of minutes. And so my question to Kendra was about, being a visionary and how do you utilize that and leverage that. So for you, Tinea, as a finisher, I think there's some things that obviously you want to do that you've been a bit anxious about and a bit apprehensive about. So, how do you become a finisher in that space that may be uneasy for you to address?
I'm gonna take notes, girl. Come on.
It really goes back to being an athlete. I'm competitive, but more importantly, I'm competitive with myself. And so it's like competitive with myself, and I don't like to break promises to myself. And so I'm like, if you can't keep your word to yourself, how can you keep it to other people?
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I'm just really big on doing what I said I would do. And I knew that I was that type of person because my friends, like, as we got older, my friends would say it more, like, I always say, like, growing up, you had friends that were amazing at being kids. You know what I mean? Like, they just had a ball. They weren't scared. They might have snuck out. They have all these stories, right? I don't have those because I was always focused. I never took myself too serious, but I always knew the cost of things. You know what I mean? Not the price, but like the value of, if I do this now, it's gonna pay off this way. Yep. If I do, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I take pride in that. Like I said, like, money and material things don't move me, but my reputation is everything to me, because I've learned how much relationships make things happen for me. I don't care. I have been the brokest of the broke and been in places I know I wasn't supposed to be because of my relationship. So I just take a lot of pride in who I am. You know what I mean? And who I represent. Like, I'm Angie's daughter. You understand what I'm saying? You can't be out here making Angie look bad. Can't be out here making Tinea look bad. And I'm also a very spiritual person. So I like to show people that I want you to see me and know that you can be spiritual, you can be creative, you can still be yourself and still be a beacon. You know what I mean? Like, there's no box that people have to put you in for you to be effective. if that makes sense. So it's like I just really strive to be the best Tinea, so I don't have any regrets about it. That's all I got. So if finishing is just about me keeping my word, I'm really big on integrity. I don't care how big or small. And if I can't finish it, you're gonna get communication with me on when I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that means that you're gonna make the promise and you're gonna finish and you're gonna have the production company, right?
Oh, for sure. I'm sitting here listening to her. I have this idea I've been working on, and I only shared it with one person, but everything that you were saying just made me say, you have to do that with that. I have this really big idea, and I'm like, okay, I have to do this now. So this is like beyond perfect time. I'm gonna cry when we hang up, but this is perfect time. For sure.
Well, look, I know we've been on here for like an hour, and I do appreciate both of you all being a part of this concept I'm putting together. And I hope it's an inspiration to other people that'll end up seeing it. And, we got to find a way to connect the two of you. Kendra, when you come out east, maybe you guys can link up. I don't know. We'll figure that
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And thank you, Silas, for being, this intercessory, I guess you could say, of like bringing people together, because there's not a lot of that. And there's not a lot of black men that I think could be in that space and
do it.
do it and take the lead and bringing, women together, men together, whomever, you decide to bring together. I just completely want to say thank you for that, because we need to see, especially our brothers, taking on the role. It's so much out here now around black women doing this Black Girls Rock. I don't never hear nothing about black men doing no other than when he becomes a hashtag. And that's my biggest biggest plight with a lot of stuff is I don't want to only care about my brother when he becomes a hashtag. It's too late then. Like I want to honor him now. Like I want to honor him. I don't want that to ever happen, but I'm just saying, like, thank you. Truly. I just want to say that.
I appreciate that. So yeah, we're going to keep it going. I've got a bunch of people I want to make connections with, and, I hope you guys stay tuned to those too. So, my thing is, man, I said this yesterday and over the weekend, it's our time, it's our tribe, and we've got overlapping circles, and I want to be able to bind those circles and bring them, even closer than they already are. So you guys are, among the first that I recorded with, and I hope, well, you know what, I'm going to stop saying I hope. It's going to be,
of course,
going to be something that people can really, really glean from and be inspired by. So again, I do appreciate y'all.
For sure. Thank you so much. Nice meeting you, Kendra. I can't wait to connect.
Oh yeah, girl. We're gonna be friends.
Yes. Thank you so much, Silas. A happy belated now again.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So we'll go from there. Thank y'all again.
Do you need anything else from us? Like, do I need to send you anything? You got my email. I mean, you don't need anything else? As far as for what you need for like production and stuff like that.
I need to think on that. I will reach out to y'all via text. I'm gonna watch it over again and figure out some stuff because it's all brand new for me. So I'm gonna figure it out, and I'll shoot you guys a text if I need anything beyond what we did already.
Okay, perfect.
Are you doing this as like a podcast or like a video? How are you doing it?
So I'm doing it initially as a video. I want to take the Zoom and put it to YouTube.
Got it.
And then, my goal is to build it out to a point where it becomes a network. And after I get about 15 or 20 episodes, maybe 30 episodes, that's 60 people at that point that have been a part of conversations, 60 unique, really, really great people. And I want other people that are watching to, one, want to be a part of it. And then two, want to be a part of other things that I have that are connected to the concept. So the goal is to build like this really large network and to, I want people that are really trying to move to the next level to make an investment in watching these and to go from there. So just trying to corral people, but the right people. It doesn't have to have 1 million views. I just want the right people to see it. And I want them to be able to say, hey, that's the tribe I want to be a part of. And we all can just build off each other.
I like it. I'm in full support.
Right. Appreciate y'all.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Talk to
Bye,
y'all.
y'all.
All right.
Okay. Have a good one.
All
Bye
right.
bye.